Eli when I need him.
So in the interest of time, I'm just going to do a roll call vote so we can keep moving on. Mr. O'Banion? Mr. Bonds?
Yes.
Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Mraz? Mrs. Arrayes? Mr. Van Werth?
Yes.
And Mrs. Davis is a yes, and we are in open session. 4.2, report out of closed session. There is none. 5.1, pledge of allegiance to the flag. Mr. O'Banion, if you would, please.
Ready, salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That is not a good view for me, and I don't approve it.
Fear, frustration, and generally overwhelmed. There are so many things that are out of our control. We offer these trials and tribulations up to you, Lord. We ask for your continued blessings for our students, staff, and community. We ask for protection for our first responders and their families. Knowing we cannot control everything that comes our way, Lord, please help us to take a deep breath and surrender our worries and anxieties to you. Bless us, Lord, with kindness, patience, and strength. We know we are stronger together and stronger with you. Amen.
7.1, excellence in education, employee recognition. Rhonda Sullivan, Director of Food Services.
And you go to the podium for this. Most of you, some of you know, some of you don't know, but every year the district recognizes our top employees. There's three categories. There's administrators, there's teachers, and there's school employees. And so we nominated 3 last year, and Rhonda was our nominee for the administrator of the year as our food services director. Rhonda's outstanding. Everybody knows she's outstanding. Longtime resident, and just a fantastic person, fantastic leader, and we're fortunate to have her. And so she was nominated on behalf of our district. She had to compete against 20 other districts within the county, and it had to go through an interview process, had to submit documents, letters of recommendation, all of these stuff, and she had to go through, like I said, interview process. And after all the chips had landed and everything was done, Rhonda is the first county administrator here, not just Powell administrator here. So can we give her a round of applause? We have a certificate. She's going to get a plaque from the county, so we didn't want to overshadow the plaque from the county. But we do have a certificate, and then I also, we got you a gift, and but I need you to open it right now. 100%. 100%.
This is a joke between, we were in a meeting with Matt, and he said royalty, and I said, I don't have a tiara.
Well, you do now.
Oh,
Yeah, that'd be great. And we did one pub. Can we give Ron a one more round?
Congratulations, Rhonda. 7.2, presentation of virtual distance learning by elementary teachers and Megan Grijalva, Director of EL Services and Student Achievement.
Community and board. We all understand that this is a very stressful time and very challenging time for our students, for our kids, for our teachers, and our staff. So we just wanted to take the opportunity to share some of the really awesome work that our elementary teachers are doing for our kids. So before I get started with this, if I could have our elementary team here tonight come up. So the individuals behind me were some of the teachers
inspiring to work at the elementary level with our teachers and to see all the amazing things they're doing. All right, so the STEM lab is providing labs for each grade level every other week. TK through second is pre-recorded. The reason behind this was we know that a lot of our young learners need their family support and the parents do work during the day, so we wanted to accommodate for that. Third through fifth is doing a live lab on Zoom. These labs are all NGSS aligned, and they are providing students with as much hands-on experience that we can recreate in the home as possible. We did a lab kickoff to have students blow up a glove or a balloon using gas created from a chemical reaction. These were items that students would typically have at home. The labs for TK through second are embedded in Seesaw. That's so that students can record their response afterwards to share with their teacher the takeaways that they had from the lesson. I wanted to do something different in the STEM lab. Typically, we're confined to the four walls of our classroom, and I wanted to make the best out of distance learning. So we are doing virtual field trips with the Magic School Bus theme. Each week, the virtual field trip will support what the students learned in the live lab, but apply it to the real world. So often our students are engaged in science in the classroom, but they really don't understand how it applies to their everyday life and their community, even at the state or the national level. So for our first virtual field trip, each grade level kicked off the year with engineering, and the STEM lab went and saw firefighters who had just finished fighting a fire. These were 4 very awesome, strong, powerful women, and they had a very positive message to give to our students about mindset. We also talked about how the truck was engineered by a mechanical engineer and how their gear had been designed to keep them safe. We saw Mr. Bonds, who was happy to participate, and he told us all about how the roads around Dos Palos have been engineered by a civil engineer. Mr. Grajava was a trooper and did some carpool karaoke with me in the school bus and drove the Magic School Bus for the day. The idea is that every week we'll change the bus driver so the students don't know who's going to show up and they don't know what song's going to be sung. It's not so much that I want the kids to be excited about anything. And if they get excited about seeing who the bus driver is or about what song we're going to play, if that gets them there, then I'm stoked. We also went to Informational Chapter and talked to John. He is a parent of one of our students here at Marks, and he told us about mechanical engineers and how they design tractors. And then we went and checked out all the bridges around Dos Palos to see how they're designed by a civil engineer. So the goal is so that students can see how science is in their everyday life and hopefully get inspired to take a job in STEM. Next slide, I think. This is my virtual classroom. So 2nd through 5th has access to this. If you click on the laptop, that takes them to our Zoom meetings. This was for back to school, so this is actually going to take you to the STEM kickoff video, and then it's the STEM lab that we did. This is just a kitchen lab. I did it with my son so parents can see how the interaction would be with their child. They're not always still, and sometimes they put their feet on the counter. So hey, maybe they got some parenting hacks, maybe not. The Magic School Bus is where they click on to go to virtual field trips. That was a movie trailer right now that was made for the STEM lab. And did you want to show a second of that? Okay. This was made for kids. I didn't really plan on this many adults seeing it, so here we go. It's probably a little less awkward without sound, but So I know that our community has a lot to do with agriculture, so that will definitely appear in the lab a lot because students see all these crops around them, but I don't think they realize the science that goes into farming as well as the technology and the engineering. So Mrs. Darnell and Mr. Gahava made the credits for casting since they hired me, so thank you. And then the STEM Lab does have a YouTube channel now where students can access all of the virtual field trips. And the idea was that behind that was that since we left school early because of COVID, since we left the year early with COVID, we could hopefully fill some of those learning gaps. So students have access to a lot of footage that will hopefully either reinforce standards that they learned or teach them standards that they may have missed. And then I think, is that my last slide? Sometimes I get long-winded. Okay, so the STEM Lab extends into regular instructional time. We wanted to make sure that the concepts that the students were learning in the STEM Lab were supported by their classroom teacher. So for TK through first, we are making Seesaw activities. So this is an example of a Seesaw activity that I created. The students can drag and drop the pictures that engineers designed into the yellow box. This is for our younger learners who may not be reading or writing quite yet, and then they can record their voice. The instructions, they can read them and they have the little graphics that they need to click on, but they are also voice recorded. So the students will have a voice recording of the instructions that they can then follow. For second through fifth, the assignments are being pushed out through Google Classroom. This week, they have a STEM challenge to build a bridge from items that they can find in their home. So we are using the 3D model of NGSS. They will then submit those photos to their classroom teacher, and fifth grade and a few other classes received little robots that they will build with their classroom teacher during that time. So that's what the STEM Lab's doing.
Okay, if I talk for this out. My name is Robin Pinto. I'm a first grade teacher at DPE.
My name is Claudia DeHaro, and I'm a kindergarten teacher.
All teachers at Dos Palace Elementary have a virtual classroom. Our principal facilitated Zoom interactions, so we were able to collaborate via Zoom and share ideas and share information and do it hands-on in the moment because we were all in our classrooms. So this one's kindergarten, if you want to talk about yours a little bit.
So all kindergarten teachers made one of their own. There was a lot of things that we worked on, and one of the things to get ready for virtual teaching was create a virtual classroom. So one of the things that I have in mind is if you click on the Unix cubes on the shelf, it gives students a resource. So almost every image in my classroom is a resource for parents, whether it's a handwriting video, it's to teach students how to properly form letters, because that's something that we work on in kindergarten, or whether it's social and emotional development, teaching students, like, if you meet someone, you should say hello, introduce yourself. So the Unix cubes are all virtual. They give resources for students. So there are a whole bunch of other things that they can use in there. There's timers. And so kids have access to it. It's free and parents can use it as well. If you click on me, they get access to my email. And then if they click on the house, they go right back to the virtual classroom. Then I also have a video up there just for students to look at. It's Monterey Bay Aquarium. It's basically a live feed. So whenever students open this up, they can see outside of the classroom as well. I also have a link to Epic, so it gives students access to books, which I can assign for them to read.
So this is my virtual classroom. So the point of the virtual classroom is just to bring something fun to school, because obviously it's very difficult to do very many fun things over technology. We're doing our very best, but this gives it a way that you can add personality into it, and kids have access to this, parents have access to it. So most of the links are all connected to the standards. So they're changed out per week depending on which skills we're teaching. The read alouds are based on the curriculum that we're doing for that week. So the books can be changed. If you click on the books, they go to a read aloud. If you click any of the links in there, if you click the reading strategies on the wall, it gives parents basically the tools they need to help their kids read at home, things that they could use to help their kids read at home. We as a staff decided with Kara's help on the 2 pictures we were going to use for STEM, so that across our staff, everybody has the same pictures. So we have the magic school bus. So every student at our campus has the same one. So that way parents are not confused, and those will stay. It also has a link to Seesaw, which will be where our assignments go. We'll be posting this actual virtual classroom on our Seesaw account. So it gives us a place that's centralized where we can put all kinds of information for parents, and they can go to one place and find it. So from education all the way to, if you click the kindness, we did a whole unit on kindness this week and being kind to others, and there's a little bit on kindness. So it's kind of a fun way to help keep reading centralized for parents. It's 3 minutes, but it really is a good video. That's probably because it's going straight to his Seesaw, but on the students' Chromebooks, when they click on it, it'll go to says, I'm a student, and they can log in. So the M is Mystery Doug, which is a program that we use for science. So they're familiar with that program. Epic is a book program that we use, so they're familiar with that program. STEM is the science. So all of them are fairly clear, and we go through these so they know what each one of them are. If you click on the days of the week, it does the days of the week song. If you click on the calendar, it'll do our poem of the month song for August. Almost everything in there has a link, and it can be changed quickly by week.
I'm going to go ahead and segue into that.
So my name's Samantha Padilla, and I teach 3rd grade.
And I'm Yvette Jass, and I teach 5th grade.
And so we also made virtual classrooms for our students. And at our level, we do utilize Google Classroom frequently. That's our main platform. But we thought, like what Mrs. Pinto was saying, that this virtual classroom is really an engaging way for these kiddos to interact with their content and their academic content. So we made virtual classrooms, and this is my virtual classroom. As Mrs. Pinto also said, it creates some personality. I love Disney, so my virtual classroom is Disney overload. And you'll see that in my classroom, I have also a lot of links to programs and things that I expect my students to utilize. And the big green thing on the whiteboard there is the link to my Google Classroom. So if students are on this and they know that my must do is to do my Google Classroom work, all they have to do is click that Google Classroom button and it takes them right to my Google Classroom with all of my posts, all of their assignments for the day. And it's really easy way for kids to be organized. And that's, I think, the big thing with at least my third graders is we're teaching them independent organizational skills. And this is a great way to do that because it's all in one place and they have all the tools that they need at their fingertips. So also in my Google Classroom, in my virtual classroom, I have my read alouds that I'm reading aloud to them. Those are on the little bookshelf there. And then I have other apps and things that they can use. So the read alouds are just versions of the books that I'm reading aloud to them. So I like it when a student reads a text more than once, because when you read a text more than once, you can always get more out of it. So that's why I put that up there as well. And then the other apps are other things that we use, like Get Epic. Mrs. Pinto had mentioned that. Get Epic is an amazing resource because it is a free online digital library for these students who do not have physical access to books right now. It's probably one of the most important things for our kiddos to have. And what's really great about it is we can assign books based on their level, but also it gives them the freedom to choose books that they want to learn about. So if they want to learn about geckos, they can go search geckos on Get Epic and it can take them there. It's really an amazing resource for kids. I've used it in the past during school, like when we're in person for research projects and things like that. It's really an amazing tool. A math game is on there, Prodigy, that's a math game kids love. And then typing is also on there. We want to start to develop those typing skills because in third grade, students do start taking the SBAC test and they will be required to type an essay on the computer. So that's why typing is there. That way they can get that practice. We also have it's sitting on the floor because I didn't want it on the table because I had stuff on the table, but on the floor we have the link to Mrs. Hayworth's virtual classroom, but that's there. So again, everything all in one place so that the students and parents have one place to go for all materials. And that was the thought process behind it.
And then for mine, same thing as Samantha, I do use my virtual classroom to have links and to address what Mr. Morales said. We are also using Screencastify. So with Screencastify, we are able to record videos. We can embed ourselves in the screen. We can give directions to the students. And so I used Screencastify to go ahead and show a tour of my virtual classroom to the students so that they could see what to click on and what it was going to take them to. I'm holding my stack of books, and that was the very first days of school. They could click on me and just get to know a little bit about me. I also have in my virtual classroom on the first slide, because I did mine per subject. If you click on, it was my virtual classroom, it will take you also to our back to school information, contact information for myself. It will also we are in 5th grade, so they actually do get grades now. It's not just a standard space. We are trying to align with Bryant so that transition is easier for next year. So we have a grading skill that's there for them, the expectations for assignments. We are pushing out tests, homework assignments. We are giving assessments so that we are trying to keep as closely aligned to what we would be doing in a regular classroom, given the situation that we're in. So we have schedules, grades, and we have it in English and in Spanish for parents. And then in my virtual classroom, if you go back to that, I have one slide per subject. Mine also does go through and it has the link. So Epic, we are also using Epic. We have a lot of students that do not have access to actual physical books at home, and they are able to go through and read books that are at their level. I also have a link to Accelerated Reader on mine. For social studies on the eStudies Weekly, that is part of how we are going to be delivering social studies instruction to our students this year. There are also assessments tied down to language arts. Keep going back and forth. Okay, so we've got the Epic. If they click on Epic, it'll take them straight to Epic. I'm doing a read aloud of Wender. That one will actually take them to the Accelerated Reader. I also have a math one. We are still in the process of getting some of our math program up. And then we have science, and it will take you straight to Ms. Hayworth's. And I do want to say thank you to Mrs. Padilla here, because she absolutely helped me this summer in creating all of this, and I could not have done it without her. So I do want to say a great big thank you to her. For 5th grade, we are using this as a link, but we are also using our Google Classroom. We are also pushing out, like I said, assessments so that we can see that the students are understanding what we are giving them. We are using Google Forms. We are asking them, okay, are you able to understand what we're doing? And they have to fill out a form and say, okay, this is what I understand. This is what I don't understand. This is how my day went. We also want to make sure that we are getting the social emotional aspect of it. And so at the end of the day, they're doing journal writing to see how the distance learning process is going for them. If they are having difficulties, they can share that, also their successes. And I hit the ground running. So people who know me know that I kind of hit the ground running when it comes to schoolwork. So we've been working on character traits this week. I'm using Google Slides. I was able to push out individually a slide to each student. That was a template. So after teaching it in class, they then had to create one, and they pushed it out to me. And so they are a lot more tech savvy than I would have thought, and more tech savvy than I am in some situations, to be honest with you. I'm also learning from them. So that's kind of what we're doing and going with it. I'm trying to, during math time, pre-recorded videos. There's been some lag time sometimes. And so when I'm doing the Zoom for the live instruction, some of them may be missing pieces of it. So I decided to start recording the lessons ahead of time, so they can actually refer back to them if they're missing pieces of it or are having difficulty accessing it through Zoom. And then I am meeting with them in small group instruction. I sent home whiteboards, markers, erasers. So they are at home and they are doing it on their whiteboards. And I say, okay, show me your whiteboards in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And so then they're putting them up to the screen. So I'm at least getting that engagement piece to see if they're getting it. I'm able to take down notes. Okay, I need to go back with this person. I can tell them, okay, hang on for a few minutes after the Zoom session is over. And then I'm able to connect with them that way. So that's kind of what our 5th grade is like. And we're pretty much all aligned in 5th grade on what we're doing too. And we're leaning a lot on each other and helping each other out with our strengths. So that is for 5th grade. Yes, Mr. Mraz. I can speak for my grade level because we've been working very closely together. And yes, we are all pretty much have a virtual classroom. And we are using it how it fits our students in our classroom. But we are pretty much all doing EPIC, I believe. We did the STAR reading test, and we're using the same math program. Language arts, we're on a pacing calendar. So we're all kind of looking to make sure that we are all aligned. We're trying to stay as closely as possible. We do know that a lot of families, because of the situation that we're in, are finding it difficult to be home because of work. So we do understand that they are in cohorts sometimes at other people's houses or grandparents, and there's more than one child. So we are pretty much keeping to the same schedule as well. So hopefully that's helping out the families. So I know for Marks, I'm assuming it's the same for DPE. We all start at 8 o'clock. They all have their break at 10. They all have their lunch at 11. We're all doing language at a certain time. We're all doing PE. So we're hoping that's also helping the families at home. Okay, so as far as individual progress, we are supposed to be contacting the parents on a weekly basis. We can do it through Aerie. Some teachers are doing Dojo. Some parents or some teachers are doing Remind. But I have been calling home. So if a child is missing assignments or if I see that they're having difficulty, I have been making phone calls. I think I've called more parents this week than I have in a long time. And throughout the day,
through Aries, right?
through Aries
And Google Classroom.
and Google Classroom.
Will send if we. Yeah.
So they can get reports weekly, and that is what we are supposed to be doing. So we are supposed to be making sure that we are contacting the parents on a weekly basis to show the progress of their child as well. And then I've got a lot of parents that are emailing me throughout the day. And so that's another method of communication that we are utilizing given the situation. Any other questions?
I just want to say, in case you guys read before the meeting's over, I want to say thank you. I know these are circumstances like you have never seen in education. And I have to tell you that I feel a lot better right now than I did when I walked in here, because this is fun and engaging, and I feel more positive right
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Thank you.
8.1, public concerns will be heard by the board at this time. However, they will not be discussed. Policy number 9323 limits individuals' presentation to 3 minutes. The president may extend the time under circumstances. This is the opportunity for members of the public to focus on issues important to the district's purpose of education. Under board policy, this time may not be used to present derogatory information of a personal nature on any employee. Members of the public who wish to address the board must speak from the podium and identify themselves.
Hi, my name is Sergio Padilla. I'm the president of the Dos Palos Loma Teachers Association. I didn't really plan to speak up here tonight, but I just kind of felt compelled to, just on a few things. The first is, as the representative for the union, I just want to commend all of our teachers for the work they've done. Seeing the work that's going on at the high school, and then by extension, seeing what my wife and the Marks campus is doing has been nothing short of amazing. In these last 3 weeks, seeing everybody kind of rise up and go above and beyond in circumstances they weren't prepared for. Either from a technical standpoint, a knowledge standpoint, education standpoint, nobody was ready for this in large. And the work they've done is commendable and should be respected. And I know everybody in the district kind of takes their turns taking their lumps, whether it's teachers, admins. This week it was kind of tech's turn to take the lumps. But I talked to Pajay the other morning, and I just want to say publicly that I can't say thank you enough to the work that he's done, him and his department, because without him, none of this would be possible. He's truly the backbone of the district right now, and I think a lot of people lose sight of that, whether it's the hotspots, whether it's the computers, every single thing going on. And I know we've had our troubles with Wi-Fi across the campuses with students in their hotspots, but the work he's doing, you guys don't pay him enough. So I wish I negotiated on his behalf, because I would be arguing very, very heavily. So, but everybody, and including our administrators, a lot of our site administrators have really been rocking it these last couple of weeks, man. They've been very supportive, very helping of teachers with issues, visiting teachers, one-on-one and helping them. I've heard a lot of good things coming from our site. So I just want to say thank you to our teachers, thank you to our admin, and thank you to Pajay and his department. So thank you, everybody.
My child just started 7th grade this year and has been unable to view information, do assignments, or contact the teacher. The Wi-Fi and hotspot goes on and off, keeping him from staying on the normal schedule. He hasn't been able to even go through a second period during the day. He actually suggested, why can't we just pick up papered homework each week? That way we'll get credit and it'll be turned in. At this point, I couldn't agree more. This is all very frustrating, especially for parents that still have to go to work. Thank you, Teresa Tillman. Hello, members of the school board and members of the community of Dos Palos. My name is Ramon Rodriguez Navarro, and I'm a senior at Dos Palos High. I'm very heartbroken, yet relieved at the online decision until it is safe to open up the school. I'm all for distance learning because it keeps us safe and will decrease the chance of getting COVID-19. I want to play my senior year of tennis and have a regular graduation on the football field next year, and distance learning and staying in quarantine will increase those chances of that. So thank you for your decision. We as students have a voice. Our voice is important because we are the #1 priority in this district. I have a few questions regarding this online learning. I watched the school board meeting that was held on July 16th, and most of the concerns came from parents with a concern that their young adults are having mental health problems. What are you as a school board doing to help these young adults with mental health problems during distance learning? 2, senior year is gonna be chaotic with all these seniors applying to college of their choices. Before in school, we would go to Mrs. Conger for help. Since we are online now, who is going to help the students who are first timers in their family to apply for college? 3, my final question is for Mr. Miller. As a superintendent of the Dos Palace Oro Loma Joint Unified School District, what are you going to do to make sure these problems are fixed? Nine point one, the consent calendar represents routine items acted upon one motion by roll call vote. The recommendation is for adoption unless otherwise specified. Any item can be removed for discussion upon request. Contracts, agreements, proposals. 9.2, Intercom Network LLC. 9.3, 2020-2021 contract for media services with Merced County Office of Education. 9.4, board meeting minutes of 7/16/20, regular board meeting minutes of 7/27/20, special board meeting minutes, warrants and payroll. 9.5, warrants and payroll. I need a motion and a second. Moved by Mr. Van Werth, second by Mr. O'Banion. Are there any questions or comments? Call for the vote. Yeah, can you vote? And it passes. 10.1, district-wide lighting, motion and a second. Moved by Mr. O'Banion, second by Mr. Bonds. Dr. Miller? Matt? Somebody?
Yeah, Matt, you can go up. There's a lot of information in the summary piece of it, but Matt can speak to the actual project itself.
Basically really simple. PG&E offers a zero interest free loan for us to apply for to replace all the lights from T8 bulbs to LED. And basically our payment will be our PG&E bill every month. And we're going through the sites right now. The sites that have been approved are Dos Palace High School, Marks, and George Christian right now. And we're still working with our solar project and the new light project that's going to happen. Hopefully, see where we'll be at. Any questions?
And I think it's also important to mention that LED lights last about 8 to 10 years, and the payment back is up to about 5 years. And like I said, it's built into the payment that we already pay. And so after that 5 years, the last like 4 to 5 years is just a complete savings to the district, which is I think close to 100 grand or something like that. So 150, I believe. So on top of solar, I know Matt also talking about doing solar on top of the district office, on top of student services and a couple other buildings, the tech office and things like that. But just trying to be as energy efficient as possible district wide. But I can't say enough about what he's done so far. So
Is there any out-of-pocket costs like in upfront for us?
Not a dime.
Okay. Any other questions?
The dollar amount, is this is 100% replacement, or I mean, because I know we have some LED fixtures already, say at the high school, et cetera. Is that accounting for those, or
Yeah.
those get swapped out as well, or
Get upgraded to
they
new
would
ones.
get upgraded to newer ones as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any
Yeah.
other questions? Okay, thank you, Matt. Call for the vote. And it passes. 10.2 Memorandum of Understanding between Dos Palos or Loma Joint Unified School District and Dpol regarding distance learning. I need a motion and a second. Moved by Mr. O'Banion, second by Mr. Chase. Dr. Miller?
So the district negotiating team and CTA's, DePolta's negotiating team met over, I think, about 2-3 days span. And we met 3 or 4 hours apiece each meeting and hammered out an MOU pretty quick. We had a lot of discussions, but they were all kind of focused on kids and safety and how we're protecting staff and protecting, our staff and how we're going to be able to educate kids during this time while teachers are on campus. And so it was a great process. Can't say enough about the Polta negotiating team and how open and fluid the conversations were. And we came to consensus at the end. And I think we have a really good product for the district and DePolta, and we're one big team. So it was a good process, and I'm proud of the project, the actual result. So.
Okay, any questions? Call for the vote. And it passes. 10.3 IXL Math Learning Program. I need a motion and a second. Moved by Mr. Chase. Second by Mr. Bonds. Dr. Miller? So at the high school, they've used accelerated math in the past, which is a online web-based program. And they are moving over to IXL Math, a different type of online curriculum at the high school, and they feel it's going to be better for kids. I believe it's more of an integrated model, right, Mrs. Crivelli? And so, which is more aligned to Common Core. And so it's a better product than we were using before, and again, more aligned to Common Core state standards. Any questions? Okay, call for the vote. And it passes. 10.4 Studies Weekly Online Resource. I need a motion and a second. Moved by Mr. Van Werth, second by Mr. O'Banion. Dr. Miller? So this IXL, let me see. Mine hasn't caught up yet. So, oh yeah, here we are. So similar to IXL Math, Studies Weekly is basically a social studies online platform for students at Marks. And it's just another resource for teachers to use. A lot of things are focused, especially online, around math and English. But this is an opportunity for teachers to teach social studies online and give students another opportunity to engage in social studies curriculum. So. Any questions?
Once we do move back into the classroom, this will continue to be useful in the classroom?
Yeah, and I think that's what's also, anytime you're dealing with a negative situation, you always try to have a growth mindset and think about what are the opportunities that we have in front of us. And so with some of the federal money that we have to be able to purchase some of these programs, we also get to find out what these programs are like. And yeah, they're used in a different district, but do they fit our kids? Is it a good program for teachers and students and things like that? And so I think that even though we're having to outsource a lot of curriculum online, it gives us also an opportunity to evaluate that and pilot it during this time also. So next school year, or when we do come back to school, some of these things, some of these programs will be in place, and we'll know what works and what doesn't for us. Any other questions? Call for the vote. And it passes. 10.5 Contract for Speech Services, Pristine Rehab Care, non-public agency. I need a motion and a second. Moved by Mr. Chase, second by Mr. Morales. Dr. Miller? So this contract, as you guys know, we had a speech pathologist that retired. And so trying to hire speech pathologists are really a needle in the haystack with speech pathologists, and their schools are not producing enough. And so we're fortunate to still have one and doing a great job. But we do have to outsource through a company for speech pathology support because we can't get anybody to apply that has the proper credentials. And so we're going through this company, Pristine Rehab Care, that that we're going to outsource. The salary and benefits is about a wash as far as costs to the district. But this is much needed services for our speech students that need speech therapy, and this company allows us to provide that. And I believe we did interview processes and things like that with the person that we're getting, so they didn't necessarily just allot somebody to us. We actually went through a little interview process with them, got to meet them, and kind of give an approval for that individual to work with the district. And they do their own fingerprints and background checks and things like that on their side, and they sign off on that. But we do get to do the interview process and kind of have some dialogue with the individual before they start. So.
Okay, are there any other questions? Call for the vote. And it passes. 10.6, contract services, Thera platform. I need a motion and a second. Moved by Mr. Bond, second by Mr. O'Banion. Dr. Miller?
So similar to Seesaw, and I know Megan showed that, Mrs. Grijalva said a little bit, and then also Zoom and Google and these different platforms. This is actually a platform for speech services. And so the individual that we're hiring or contracting out for can use this to meet with kids virtually and have a specific platform for speech services, and it's kind of dedicated to that service. And so as you see, a lot of the Seesaw is K1. I know that we have another one for ag students that's specifically for ag. Then you have the Bitmoji platform, and all these different platforms for different age levels and services. And this is just another platform for speech services.
Any questions? Call for the vote. And it passes. 10.7, state budget update and revised revenue projections.
Hello, good evening. Tonight I'm here to notify you.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry about that.
A motion and a second. Motion by Mr. O'Banion.
Sorry about that. So tonight I'm here to
Second by
notify you.
Mr. Chase. Sorry, you were so prepared. I was ready to go.
Budget. In June, I said that the adoption budget was the best we can given the current set of conditions, and those were our conditions that we faced with our COVID-19 pandemic. And I'll wait till Pajay gets caught up with the presentation. I'm on the second page. So with the passing of the Budget Act, SB 98, at the end of June, and various other budget trailer bills the governor signed by Governor Newsom, that brought some significant changes to the revenues that I need to share with you tonight, and we will incorporate these into the revised budget upon your approval. Next slide. Significant changes. As you may recall, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, California was faced with a $54 billion deficit in the California state budget. And the governor outlined a variety of Budget Act balancing strategies. Most significantly to the education budget was a 7.92% reduction in our local control funding formula. The 45-day revision now restores that 7.92% to the base grant funding and sets the COLA to zero. There's a hold harmless provision in place so that we will receive funding according to our 1920 P2 ADA, regardless of our P2 ADA in the current year. And that's approximately 68 less ADA than what we were funded on in 18-19 because Dos Palace is in a slight declining enrollment pattern. So we will see a reduction of nearly $800,000 due to the fact that we were funded prior year on more ADA than we would, and it would have been the same, actually. We would have been funded the same, under that same formula, had we counted ADA this year too. But as you know, the cost of doing business also continues to increase. So our operating expenses and supplies and salary and benefits, capital outlay projects, we have to be mindful of that as we are receiving less funding, even though our funding has been restored because of the declining enrollment. So how is it possible that we can restore the funding with the $54.5 billion deficit? Well, the work of the legislature was instrumental in making that happen by convincing the governor that instead of reducing our funding, we could absorb this through the process of cash deferrals. And essentially what will happen is the state will give us an IOU for a good portion of our ongoing funding, and we'll put that off till a future time, the following year. Cash deferrals for Dos Palos are estimated to be $5.9 million in this current year. Next slide. So if we took a look back at our journey for comparison, at second interim, it was estimated that our LCFF funding would be $27.8 million. At adoption budget, we had to reduce that to $24.8 million, which was a loss of $3 million. The 45-day revision has now restored that 7.92% cut without adding a COLA. And so our funding will be just over $27 million for the 2021 school year. But as I said, that is a cut in funding, ongoing funding from prior year of approximately $800,000. Next slide, please. So other significant changes, the 45-day revise restores the 50% cut to some of our categorical programs, specifically our Career Technical Education Grant and the Ag Tech Grant, and restores our preschool reimbursement rate. So those are good things. Next. Lottery revenues saw reductions because lottery sales took a hit. So there'll be less funds coming in for our lottery funding source. Next. And then what has been identified is our COVID-19 one-time funds. In response to the pandemic, one-time funds have been identified, and the CDE has put out their intended purposes. Use of the funds will be subject to audit by our external auditors, so we want to spend them correctly. As you can see, each of them are differing amounts, but a lot of similarities. Most of them have a December 30th, 2020 deadline, with that far right one having its September 30, 2022 deadline, so that gives us a little time. Expenses that are allowable provide for learning loss mitigation, such as extra time in the school day, extra help after school, additional student supports in technology, and services to students. Also, pupil services such as social emotional support. Food services and counseling are among the things that we can use these funds to help support our students. So we are hard at work, Megan, Lalo, superintendent, determining the best use of these monies. Also getting stakeholder engagement and identifying all the things that have been put in place since last March, actually, when our journey began on this distance learning process, right? The use of those funds will be outlined in our learning continuity plan, and that will be presented to you at a special board meeting coming up on September 10th. Next one, please. So significant changes also affect our multi-year projections. The zero COLA for 2021, for 21-22, and 22-23. The deferrals are equivalent to approximately 14% of all of our LCFF funding. Actually, I did the calculations, and it's actually slightly more for this district because we're significantly funded by the state aid that backfills the property taxes of our LCFF funding. So it's actually higher than 14%. On average, districts are seeing a 14% reduction of funding due to the deferrals. It's like a cut, but it's an IOU, so it's not, it just has to be absorbed by the district. These deferrals are ongoing. So as the recovery is unknown, it will also be unknown how long the deferrals will be in place. The LA office says that the COVID-19 is a multi-year problem, and there is potential for further deterioration of the state's fiscal condition in 21-22, and you can see that because you can see how well things are coming back and opening up in the state. So if you look at our fund balance, which was at adoption budget, this shows the multi-year projections. And at adoption budget time, there was a significant deficiency of revenues in 2021, which resulted in that net decrease of $3 million. This particular scenario played out for an additional 2 years, really diminished the reserves to that $1.8 million level by the end of 22-23, and it really would be only a matter of time. The district would not be able to sustain that for much longer under this scenario. So what we were looking for was a V-shaped recovery. I don't know if we're quite on a V-shaped recovery with our revenues. With California's revenues just don't seem back up rapidly. Maybe a U-shaped recovery, but if it carries on at length, then we just really need to be mindful of our financials. So let's see the change with the 45-day revision. With the adjustment as a result of the 45-day revision, there is an improvement to the current year, bringing our net decrease from that $3 million to just $38,000. So how did we close that gap so quickly? Well, we budgeted for the revenues that we thought we lost, and I didn't change the expenditures, because in all reality, we really should be prudent with our expenditures at this point. And if we can continue to operate with a mindset that's like a wait and see mindset, as opposed to business as usual, we'll really be in the best place to weather the storm. So in addition to that, I had a conversation with Matt McCullough, Director of MOT, to discuss his major capital projects, and shared that at this time it is imperative that we have a cautious approach to any new major projects or major maintenance projects, but that doesn't mean we won't focus on what needs to be done for the district. We do still have budget for deferred maintenance. We do still have budget to maintain our facilities, because it's important that our facilities are still upkept to the best level as possible. So if you look at this scenario where you see that our available reserve in our 2021 adopted budget 45-day revise says total available reserve $9.4 million. This year, that won't be cash in the bank. Because of the deferrals, it will be $3.6 to $4 million in the bank, and then the promise to get the extra cash in the following year. So the $5.9 million that will be deferred this year we will receive in the following year, but we will also have it deferred in the following year. So it just continues to push that off. If you think about it though, the California economy can't sustain that for too long before the deferrals would have to become a cut. Because if you put off $1 million this year and you say next year we're going to catch up on that, you'd have to have double revenue to catch up, right? Otherwise, you're never making it to the other end without either a cut to the budget, or if you had extra funds that could double up. That makes sense. So if you look at the next slide, here's how the deferrals are aligned out. So we already endured the first deferral, which was the $3.2 million deferral from our aid in June to July. Next, we'll see a deferral in February of $758,000, and that will be repaid in November of 2021. March will be $1.1 million deferred to October. April goes to September, same amount, $1.1 million. And then in May, another $1.1 million to August. And then again, we'll see June with a $1.7 million deferred to July. So as I said, the state won't be able to catch up on deferrals until there's sufficient revenue to double up on payments. So we're hoping for a good, speedy recovery of the economy, and that would put us in the best position. But for now, we're weathering the storm, and we have some good news because they've restored our revenues, and we'll continue to monitor how things go from here. I did include 2 additional slides with our cash flow summary, but realized that later I'll share an updated cash flow summary, so I won't take any time on that one right now. And that would be the end of this presentation. If there are any questions. If not, I recommend approval of the budget revisions to reflect the changes in revenues.
I'd like to just mention also, I know we've talked about it before. We know that right now it's kind of, Mrs. Kopinski talked about kind of a wait and see. And right now we're whole, even though there's deferrals and things like that. But as a district right now, we are in daily dialogue about how we can combine positions, how can we be more efficient with what we're doing. We have a lot of positions that are just unfilled right now, which is a savings that's not built into this. And so we know that we need to stay at 16% reserve. We know that also if we are in declining enrollment over the next year, then that's less teachers that we'll need. It's probably less instructional aides that we'll need and things like that. And so each year you base some of those numbers off of grade level ratios, teacher to student ratios, and things like that. So we're whole right now and we have time to prepare, and the preparation is taking place. And like I said, we're having very honest conversations about how we can conserve cash. And we're in a great place right now in comparison to a lot of districts because the board has been prudent with the budget and maintaining a 16% reserve. But it's our job to make sure that we're being efficient and in preparation for 21-22. That's the dialogue that we're having with union leaders and just internally with ourselves and things like that. So it's going to be a kind of a wait and see, but there's a lot of internal discussions about what 21-22 could look like. And we need to be prepared for it, and we will be. So.
So this approval of this resolution will provide a more permanent alternative solution to the current short-term borrowing for cash flow purposes. So the Child Development Program receives their funding on a reimbursement basis and doesn't accumulate enough cash on hand sometimes to meet all its financial obligations. So in the past, we would do a short-term loan, and according to Ed Code 42603, the short-term loan has to be repaid in the same year, unless it's 120 days from the end of the fiscal year, and then it gets paid in the following year. You can pay it back in the following year, but it just presents a lot of complicated hoops to jump through in order to just do business. So this is a way where they would just have that reserve cash to meet their cash flow needs, and then maybe they would build up a reserve and be able to pay this back. Maybe they continue to operate on a reimbursement basis, and they can't, but it still would be general fund money just on loan to the preschool fund, and they're only for the purposes of operating expenses and cash flow, and it would not be recognized as a revenue for the fund. It would just be there so that when they need to meet their financial obligations with checks and bills, they have that cash on hand and ready to do that. So similarly to the Child Development Fund, the Adult Education Program receives their revenues in 12 equal installments, and sometimes they're awarded additional funds, but they are awarded them and that is reimbursed after they've made their expenditures. So this would do the same thing. It would provide them the reserve monies in order to meet their financial obligations for cash purposes only, and at any time that program can permanently give that money back to the general fund, they can, but otherwise this creates a good scenario for them to operate more seamlessly than the current short-term borrowing option. I don't have to run through again. Now I think I'm done.
I can speak to it. I've shared it with the board before, but there are dead spots that Verizon cannot pick up in our community. And so we'd like to purchase 20 AT&T hotspots for students, and also gives us an opportunity to kind of load balance the network and things like that. So it's basically 20 AT&T hotspots for the places that Verizon and some other networks don't cover. So. Yeah. It's basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pajay, but I believe it's the other side of Bryant and then the Y. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're able to connect faster. The Verizon hotspot there, that doesn't.
I don't think so, because the towers for Verizon are in our vicinity. I know the tower is close down the river. West of Rivals. There's a tower right there. That's the AT&T tower. The Los Angeles doesn't know what you have that. Okay.
Pajay and started an email chain today with myself and Mrs. Kopinski, and basically it's the conversation about putting up towers, and we can actually probably get that done fairly quickly, maybe by the beginning of next year. And so it won't happen anything overnight, but there's a possibility that could happen in about 4 or 5 months. And so starting the conversation, doing research, and I know Pajay's done a lot of work with that on top of everything everything else that he's been doing. But he has a quote, and we could potentially use federal money for that. And so we're researching that. So we're not going to be a quick fix, but it is a long-term fix depending on how long this goes. And then on top of that, it's just like I said again, the positive to all of this is that it's forcing a lot of people to use the internet and get experience online. And I think more and more people will begin to use the network. And so if we have community Wi-Fi for all students throughout the whole entire community, we don't have to mess with hotspots. We don't have to mess with all of those things. We'll just, be able to give them a laptop and they'll be good to go. So, but that's, like I said, the long 6 months to 7 month goal. So.
And then, talking about, how does that counter the amount of money we're paying Verizon and AT&T and all these providers for the service?
What's the bill on that?
Yeah, keep in mind that these hotspots are just a short-term solution that's not meant for long-term. So so we're spending close to about 30,000 with AT&T and also with Kajit. We're close to $35,000 to $36,000 a month. But keep in mind there's CTF discounts that basically will cut that in half if the COVID situation keeps going. So the state of California is willing to help that. This situation, if you take a look at the long-term solution of it, money-wise, even if it's going to cost you right around $900 to $1 million, it's still going to be a better solution versus the hotspots over a year period.
And you have the tower right there.
Yeah. And it belongs to us, basically.
And the community Wi-Fi would be free to our students. They would log on and.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions about 10.10? Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, would you mind you don't have to go there if you just identify yourself. Okay. Okay. I'll call for the vote. And it passes. 10.11 Ag CTE Supplemental Online Resource. I need a motion and a second. Moved by Mr. O'Banion, second by Mr. Mraz. Dr. Miller?
Similar to some other things we've discussed tonight, this is a web-based online program for ag classes, and they basically have, like the elementary teachers talked a little bit about. They kind of have video lessons and things like that they save that you can go back and watch on YouTube and things like that. This is similar to that. They have basically top college ag program instructors that have videos and things like that students can go on and access, and project-based learning that's on this platform. So it's an opportunity to pilot a program that maybe ag might use moving forward. So.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Crivelli.
I think everything we're trying to use is CARES money, but I think we're trying to spend that too. So absolutely.
Okay. Call for the vote. And it passes. 10.12, 2020-2021 consolidated application for funding categorical aid programs. I need a motion and a second. Moved by Mr. Chase, second by Mr. Moraz. Dr. Miller?
So it's basically what it says, the application, so we can receive categorical funding. And so there's data in this document, there's information about our academic program and services and things like that. And so we recommend to approve so we can stay compliant with the federal government.
Okay, any questions? Call for the vote. And it passes. Personnel, 1.1, third grade instructional lead, Marks Elementary School, recommended candidate Samantha Padilla. I need a motion and a second. Mr. Evans? Okay. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Vaughn to take 11.1 through 11.20. 11.2, fourth grade instructional lead, Marks Elementary School, recommended candidate Stacy Warren. 11.3, fifth grade instructional lead, Marks Elementary School, recommended candidate Marlon Orozco. 11.4, sped instructional lead, Marks Elementary School, recommended candidate Maria Gonzalez. 11.5, head varsity boys track coach, Dos Palace High School, recommended candidate Edwin Gibb. 11.6, volunteer football coach, Dos Palace High School, recommended candidate Ryan Jones. 11.7, extra pay for extra duty, preparation distance learning. 11.8, FMLA. 11.9, network specialist technology, recommended candidate Lauren Nield. 11.10, cafeteria servers, PC number 090025, 130015, 140037, Bryant Middle School, recommended candidate Ivan D. Mendez. 11.11, Special Education Department Chair, Dos Palace High School, recommended candidate Kevin Jones. 11.12, Visual and Performing Arts Department Chair, Dos Palace High School, recommended candidate Chris Sharnick. 11.13, Teacher in Charge, George Christian Ed Center, recommended candidate Katie Miller. 11.14, Special Education Department Chair, Bryant Middle School, recommended candidate Julie Burton. 11.15, ELA Department Chair, Bryant Middle School, recommended candidate Danielle Young. 11.16, Electives Department Chair, Bryant Middle School, recommended candidate Mike Tall. 11.17, Math Department Chair, Bryant Middle School, recommended candidate Kelly Wilson. 11.18, Social Studies Department Chair, Bryant Middle School, recommended candidate Mitzi Gonzalez. 11.19, Science Department Chair, Bryant Middle School, recommended candidate Paul Treso. 11.20, extra pay for extra duty, English Language Learner Specialist. Are there any questions? Okay, call for the vote. We need to wait for you to catch up, Dottie, or?
Yeah, she's gonna need to get caught up. Do you guys want, while she gets caught up and we vote eventually, do you guys want to move to 12.1 Williams
Sure.
as an informational item?
12.1, Williams Quarterly Complaint Report Summary, informational item. What?
I'll need you to vote, please.
Well, that didn't take very long to catch up. And it passes.
Did you already catch up?
You told me, go on, I went on, and there we
She
go.
told me that, so that's why I told you that. So
Okay, 12.1, Williams Quarterly Complaint Report Summary, informational item by Lalo. Mr. Lopez, good evening.
I get to do one thing. So, Board President Davis, good news, no complaints, just a lot of
Thank you for something
A lot
positive.
of
We appreciate
praise
you.
and a lot of positivity. Thank you.
Always positive, man. Always positive.
12.2 resignations and retirement informational items.
So we just like to thank, there's a couple of resignations, and we had some folks got hired other districts and moved on. And so we just like to thank them for their years of service.
Okay. 12.3, first reading May 2020 policy updates. Would you like me to read? Okay, that's all.
That was a quick no.
Another unanimous. Written reports, 13.1, educational and personnel services, 13.2, food services, 13.3, health services, 13.4, maintenance, operations, and transportation, 13.5, preschool, 13.6, special education, and 13.7, technology. Are there any questions or concerns? I'm sorry.
My name is Sierra Freya, and I was wondering about special education. Sorry. Special education and how we're gonna get extra help for our kids, especially those that can't do the online programs as well as their kids. I know my son personally can't handle the math facts, which is so fast that his brain can't keep up. So I'm wondering how we're gonna accommodate those kind of kids.
Okay, as soon as the meeting is concluded, if you could write your name or you can come up and I can give you a piece of paper. If you want to write your name and number down, we'll have somebody reach out to you tomorrow and try to get your questions answered for you.
Okay.
There you go. And if you just want to put what grade your child's in as well. Thank you. You're welcome. .1 fiscal cash status update.
Ajay? I'll put the.
We have low percent when you will this.
What's that?
Positive.
Yes.
If we have low present with you, will this turn into something positive?
Actually, it's positive. Yeah. I mean, we actually are as a district in a much better place than probably many other districts that are in this kind of cash flow. And I know it's not on the
better
screen
than
yet,
the last
but, if you have yours in front of you and look at the very top of the page in the green box, it says beginning cash. And it's the figure there you see is $7 million. That is down. That is our actual beginning cash as of July 1st, 2020. This has been updated from what I shared in the multi-year projections because that was still off of our adoption budget and then the 45-day rewrite. So now what has been put in place is an update from the county with our cash. So beginning cash is now at $7 million there. And right below it is the box that says ending cash, which would be at the end of June 2021, is $2.4 million. So it's a little bit different from what I presented in the 45-day revise, but this is just a snapshot of the year. The only column on here that has actual numbers is July because we're just through with 1 month of the year. So this is just the best guess scenario as far as what might happen with our cash over the year, but it does include, you can see in the column that's kind of shaded blue, it's accrual at the top. It's a $5.9 million, which is the deferred amount of our ongoing state funding. So once you add that 5.9 million with the cash that's available in the bank to 2.4 million, we do have a fund balance of 8.2 million. And so that's still considered our fund balance, our reserve, and that's what we'll continue to move forward on. But as we look forward to when we might have some cash shortfalls in a particular month, just like what I shared with adult ed and child development, we might not need to have a little bit of extra reserve in the bank or an option to have an extra reserve of cash in the bank. So next time, I would like to present to you the different options that are coming down and are available for us as far as having cash available, with whether it would be with the trans. Merced County Treasury is doing they call it a dry period funding of some sort. So I have some details on that, where that looks pretty promising and is reasonably inexpensive. Borrowing cash will cost the district a little bit of money, but in order to weather this whole storm, we might have to be in that position. So next time, I'd like to bring back to you those options, and that will require a board resolution to put something like that in place. So I want to get on that early before we're scrambling to need cash in the bank. So,
We get to November, June of 21, and I can barely see it. Like, we have a fund balance. Is that cash or is that just a total?
In the ending.
Almost 3 million, right?
Right, at the bottom in the green box.
It says we have to maintain 16% reserve, but we have to do something. Do you know what that figure is right off your head?
To maintain a 16% reserve?
Yeah, we have board policy that says that. To me, it looks like it's going to be under that amount.
Yes, if that
So
is
we would have to do something in that
scenario,
level.
the cash is below that, but our fund balance is not below that. It's not below a 16% reserve, the fund balance. So our fund balance is cash and promise of cash that's owed to us. We don't necessarily know when we're going to be made good on that cash, the deferrals. So we still have an 8.2 fund balance, which does meet the 16% reserve. I know, right? If you had it on your computer, I'm with you too. I'm like, actually, some of the numbers. I was like,
Are there any questions?
I'd like to make it a little more concise, but this is actually a pretty handy tool the county has developed that allows to put the deferrals in the mix and really see where it impacts the month-to-month funding. So it'll be useful. I'll make it so that it's a little bit
That's
more
fine. It makes it bigger. Oh, the paper. If you pull it up on the, as they're attached. Sorry. Never mind. Forget I brought it up.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. (14.2) Superintendent report, Dr. Miller.
So I know it's been rough for parents and students and teachers, but everybody's kind of working together through this, and there's been some bumps with technology, but I just can't say enough. And I know Sergio mentioned a little bit ago how fantastic our technology department is. They're down one person, and they're not just servicing the staff. They're servicing 2,300 students that need laptops, hotspots, and they have issues. They're dead spots, and there's so many more issues, and they're accustomed to starting a school year with one less person who's actually the network person to deal with the internet and so connectivity. So I just can't say enough about how everybody's come together in this time, and I can't say enough about Pajay and his team with Rodney and David, what they've done to this point. And that things will level out in the next week or two, like Pajay keeps on telling us. And I truly believe that, and it's just a matter of time. But they've had a blue collar mentality, how they've dealt with the issues, and this too shall pass. So anyway, also I want to thank Rhonda one more time. You look awesome in that tiara. Just want to tell you that. Shade structure is going to be finished probably next week, right, Matt? Awesome. The poles that stands on, I'm trying to think of like the support beams or whatever, right? That's what I'm looking for. And so those are up, and the shade structure itself should be put on next week. So that's exciting. It's been stalled through the DSA process, but it's coming to an end, which is fantastic. And our football field is concrete being poured on the outside of the track, on the inside of the track. Kind of, you see the football field starting to take shape, and the track and all of the pieces of it that will come to fruition. And so it's exciting to see that project, take progress. It's been a long time, but it's exciting to see. And when it's done and we get past this pandemic and our kids come back to school and can't wait to see the soccer team, can't wait to see the football team, can't wait to see the band out there, the track team, Pop Warner, everybody out there on that field having a great time and enjoying themselves and growing and being a part of a community event. So anyway, exciting stuff going on. I know, like I said, we're in a pandemic, but I always look to the future and the positive, and so there's a lot of positive going on. So, and I can't thank the staff enough, and how much people aren't looking at barriers, they're looking at solutions, and I really appreciate that. So.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Miller. 14.3, report from board members, Mr. Abanian. Mr. Jones? Mr. Chase?
I want to second or third, the Herculean efforts of the IT department, et cetera. A few years ago, we had it all outsourced, and I could never imagine any of this getting done the way it has, having our IT department outsourced. So, you and your small man has done just a Herculean job getting this stuff out in short order and short time, and responding quickly when there is an issue and taking care of it. There's complaints out there, and some people just don't understand. But really, how much is going into it, how much effort has gone into it, and the fact he's still available to pivot and take care of those little things and this and that. here and there, and still available, ongoing. You know, the problems aren't going to disappear overnight. They're going to be, but we're going to have fewer and fewer and fewer problems as people get acclimated, we get the right technology out in the right locations, et cetera. So thank you team. Same goes to the teachers, to the rest of the staff. You know, thank you for all your efforts in this new environment. It's very strange, very unusual, but obviously, you know, from the presentations we had tonight, it put my mind a lot more at ease that, you know, we are on the right track and doing the best we can for these kids. So thank you as well. And the administrators for backing them up, and for all the support staff, ECSC administration, thank you, all of you. Ms. Sullivan, your lunch staff and breakfast staff for getting those kids fed every day, ongoing. I can't say enough. I'm proud of the people in this, you know, in our organization, we'll say. You know, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morales?
Jay, you're doing an awesome job. Seems like every little text we were getting, this was down, that was down. You're hustling a good job. We appreciate you. And ongoing work class, you're doing an awesome job. Keep doing a great job. Some of these things are out of our control. We can't control what the internet's doing. You're doing the best you can, and I commend you, and I thank you for that. Teachers are doing an awesome job. I'm impressed with what you're doing there. Seeing what, you know, presentation you give, I think it's great. Parents, you're out there for struggling, let us know. Get a hold of your administrators. Let them know what you're having. You know, we're trying to problem solve. Verizon's not working, so we're going to AT&T. We're going to continue to problem solve, but we can't solve the problems if we don't know about them. Continue to let us know. We're going to work on it because we got a hard-working team. Evident with everything that we see and that we hear. The ongoing text messages, emails that we get. Staff is doing an awesome job. We thank you. Rhonda, I tried to reach out to you personally. The number my phone would not get you. But I want to commend you. You do an awesome job. Couldn't say enough. You deserve that. So, awesome. Good job.
I like to piggyback off of that, Rhonda. I like to piggyback off of that. Jay, awesome. I know my daughter-in-law had a problem on Monday. She called the school and you're Saturday on the phone talking to us. It was that bad. I was like, what? I was sad at it. I mean, I can't even believe that he was available. I'm sure there's Pinto. Not that I didn't want to recommend now, but wow. She was online with my grandson. It was a story time or something, and I'm like, story stop. Story stop. She posted without hesitation. She went right into something else. I would be totally freaking out. and she was like, get your pencil, you know, it's fine. She's running to aid, get your tablet, everything. And this time I'm trying to strip the 3-year-old. Like, you know, I can find my pen on this TV one. And all these little faces, doing their you're just you're on and you do rock star.
Mr. Van Wert? They pretty much said it all. It takes a village, and we can't. This thing is driving me crazy. You know, I talk with my hands. We can't be successful for these kids unless we stay unified and stay together. And I just can't stress that enough. Everybody is doing a great job, but we're doing a great job for these kids because we're doing it together. And I just can't stress enough, just hang in there with us. We're going to hang in there with you. We have to hang in there for those kids and parents. If anybody's out there watching, what Mr. Morales said, we can't help you and we don't know that you have a problem unless you pick up the phone, and call your administrator, call the district office, call technology, call somebody, call one of us. Just pick up the phone and call someone and just let us know my child is struggling, my child's sad, my child's having a problem, I'm overwhelmed, my husband's overwhelmed. Don't struggle alone. We are all here in this village to help get these kids an education and make sure they're okay, because the top goal of all of us is to get these kids back in that classroom with you. That is all our number one goal. And as soon as those numbers drop to a level where it is acceptable, we are going to do the best we can to get those kiddos back in your room so that you can love them and teach them. And that's our number one goal. So we are stronger 100% together. So thank you all very much and hang in there. 15.1, requests from board members for future agenda items. Mr. Abanian, Mr. Bond, Mr. Chase, Mr. Mraz, Mrs. Reyes, Mr. Van Wert, and Mr. Davis has nothing. Mr. Abanian, second by Jeremy. Good night. You guys, I need to all please come here for a second.
Hey, how come, I wanted a little, like tutorial, like, I want you to put the whole elementary staff up there with their emojis, and I want you to like, give them, because I was like,